And I think some of these people, musicians and stuff, they do have their devils inspiring them. And actually, I believe it was Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu who said, there was like Musaylima or someone else who had claimed prophethood. And they said, do you think he gets revelation? And he said he does. And then they said, how can you say that? And then he mentioned the verse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that their devils inspire them. And he said, so they are being inspired, but it's not by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they're inspired by the shayateen. And so they had this amongst them, and they started making the claims, and so they actually would sit around in a gathering and think, what can we say about this message that he's brought? So they would make up lies. They would say he's a madman, he's crazy, or he's a magician, or he has a devil that's inspiring him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is rejecting all of them here in these verses. وَمَا هُوَ عَلَى الْغَيْبِ بِضَنِينٍ وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ شَيْطَانٍ رَجِيمٍ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after rejecting it, says to them, فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ. So where are you going to go now? Where are you going to go? They knew that this was the clear path. They understood it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that where are you going to go with that belief? And a lot of people, when they say that they believe in a higher being, or they understand Islam to have truth, well, what are we going to do with that understanding now? And how are we going to live our lives? I remember one brother who had become Muslim, before becoming Muslim, he had realized in his heart that Islam was the truth. But he kept avoiding it, becoming Muslim. And he said, he reached the point where, well, what am I going to do with this belief that I have? Where am I going to go? I know this to be the truth, but what am I going to do with that belief? And a lot of Muslims, they believe in Islam, they believe in Allah and the Messenger and the hereafter and Jannah and Nar, but where are they going with that belief? And what are they doing with that belief? And how is it affecting their lives? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then continues, إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. For this revelation, dhikrun, a reminder. And like I said about when Allah speaks about them disbelieving, the word كَذَّبَ comes up, correct? That they, from the root word of them lying. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He calls the people to enter into Islam, He says, He uses the word dhikrun, a remembrance or a reminder, or they are reminded of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In huwa illa dhikrun. It's not something new, but it's a reminder of their duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you'll see the word dhikr coming in many times as the name of the Qur'an. It says there, verily this Qur'an is no less than a reminder. You see it in brackets. And so the word dhikr is mentioned as a name for Qur'an. لِمَنْ شَاءَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يَسْتَقِيمُ. And here the choice is given for those who wish to lead an upright life and to walk straight. And in fact, that choice basically, when we start going into the ayat of hellfire, a person doesn't have a choice. If a person truly understands hellfire and the reality of it, there is no choice. A person can only take this path of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and hellfire isn't an option to be considered. When Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, there was a group of people that had followed Musaylima. They had followed Musaylim al-Kadhdhab, who claimed to be a prophet and claimed to have revelation. And so when they did tawbah and they came back to following mainstream Islam, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu asked them to recite some of these verses. And they said, no, please forgive us, we don't want to say it. And he said, no, please say the verses. And so they recited some of those rhymes that Musaylima would say. And when he heard like the foolishness of the rhymes, he said to them, وَيْحَكُمْ أَيْنَ كَانَ يَذْهَبُ بِعُقُولِكُمْ. He said, woe to you. Where did your intelligence and your brain go that you would believe this? He said, أَيَقُولُ هَذَا إِلَهِ. Would a God say words like this? And subhanAllah, when you see this society and all the things that are misguiding them, this statement of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu comes into my mind very often. That وَيْحَكُمْ أَيْنَ كَانَ يَذْهَبُ بِعُقُولِكُمْ. Where is your mind taking you to make you believe and make you be distracted from the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verse 29, if you'll notice in verse 28, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لِمَنْ شَاءَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يَسْتَقِيمُ, that whoever wishes to be upright. Abu Jahl used to say that, basically he was saying that the ball is in his, corner or in his court. He would say that, إِذَا شِئْنَا, he would say that if we wish, and it's up to us, that we'll follow and be upright, nastaqim. And he said, and if we don't wish, la nastaqim. He said, we won't be upright. But it's up to us. We're in charge of this issue. And it's not up to Allah or Muhammad, it's up to us. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed verse 29, وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there's nothing that you cannot will except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills it, Rabbul Alameen, the Lord of the universe, or Lord of all the mankind. There was actually an interesting point. A man once came to Ali radiallahu anhu and he said that humans have their own will and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't involved in their will. And so Ali radiallahu anhu taught him a valuable lesson, and he said, okay, he said, I have a piece of bread here. Do you wish to eat it, or do you wish to not eat it? And so the person says, I wish to eat it. So he takes the bread and he puts it in his mouth, and then Ali radiallahu anhu tells his bodyguards, extract it from his mouth. And so they pounced on him, they stuck their hand in his mouth, and they ripped the bread out of his mouth. And then he said, see, you willed it, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't will for you to eat that bread. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And so when a person recites a verse like that, they reflect and they say that this guidance and hidayah isn't the choice of a person. They have up to a certain point, but it's the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the favor of Allah azza wa jal, that allows them to accept it. And so it should be Allah that we should pray to give us this hidayah and to give us this guidance. And that actually attaches the person in dua to Allah azza wa jal.